So it was just over 6 million in 2008. It's just under 6 million now. So we're not making progress. The second thing it shows is that top line, which is very hard to see, is GDP growth. And what we see is that people over 35, the employment figures of 35 plus, tracks to GDP growth. So when GDP goes up, the number of adults or over 35s working goes up. That is not the case with young people. The systemic barriers are too high. And so when you're programming EPWP projects and you've got your youth target, just think about that. It's an additional complication. This is an important, every year 1 million people enter the labour market. So they finish school or they finish post-school education and they come into the labour market. And every year 1 million people age out of the labour market. So pretty much we have 1 million in, 1 million out until the mid-40s. After that, the death rate makes an effort. We start to see lower numbers of people. But 1 million kids start school every year. That 1 million is consistent. Of the 1 million who have entered the labour market in January this year, so yay, high matric rates, yes, lots of people have finished school. 400,000 will find a short-term or some kind of work opportunity in the economy, and they are likely to keep working on a major time basis for the rest of their lives. It won't be, I've got my job and career progression, but those 400 are likely to get work and keep working. And the more experience you have, the more likely you are to keep working. 300,000 will do something. Like they'll be in an EPWP project, or they'll get some piecework, or they'll get a short-term contract. Average contract length we're seeing in the formal sector is 4.3 months. So I'm just trying to blow up some of our 20th century images of I get a job, I keep a job, it's a full-time job for the rest of my life. That's not the economy we have here. 100,000 will never work and maybe don't want to. 200,000 will never work but desperately want to. And this is a shape of the systemic failure at the moment of the economy and the labour market for the people coming into it. And EPWP is a critical piece of this puzzle. But as a program, EPWP can't solve the systemic issues we're facing in this space. And so there's a lot of work being done at the moment to try and say, as a country, there are 4 things we need to be pushing on to try and shift employment opportunities. We need to get formal sector employers with a broader understanding of who can be included, so not just the people with the experience and high-level skills. We need to look at the areas where there could be new job created. It's going to require a huge amount of coordination, investment, people working together to get new jobs. Creating new jobs is the hardest piece of this work, but it can happen. Thinking differently about self-employment and income generation, and some of our colleagues earlier today have spoken a lot about the informal economy and what needs to happen in that space. And as South Africa, there's just so many lessons we need to be learning from the rest of the continent and applying. And then there's public employment. And the ability, and I think many of us are aware of a lot of the research, the potential for work in our communities. I mean, this thing of kids in containers being floated across a river, There is so much work that needs to be done. There are so many services not being delivered. There is more work that needs to be done in South Africa than we can dream of. And we have to start thinking about public employment as the solution for that, and why that's so important. Okay, so now let's get to skills. Gamma, we're going fast. So there are 3 phrases I want to introduce to you that are important if we're thinking about the skilling strategy. We have an enormous amount of money in South Africa available for skills and spent on skills, and very, very, very poor outputs at the moment in terms of how those skills are transforming the economy. The new language, because it's always important to be up with the right new language and jargon, demand-led skilling. Can I just see who's familiar? with demand-led skilling? Exactly. Demand-led skilling, and unfortunately I can't see on my, focuses on identifying the skills that employers are actively seeking and then tailoring training programs to meet the specific needs. That's hard work. DHET is doing a legendary amount of work in trying to work out what that looks like. But it's not just putting people into a current training program. And it's particularly important in these new growth sectors or sunrise sectors of the economy. So global business services, green economy, digital, tourism, agriculture, construction, that's where we need to be thinking about the demand-led skilling. The thing that I think we often don't understand, we're very good at understanding technical skills and qualifications. When Harambee first started, we surveyed many employers and said, what is it you're looking for in an entry-level job? What are you recruiting for? Not one of them ever said, train them first. They said for entry-level jobs, we can teach them the skills in the job. We need the attitudes and behaviours that make them a good prospect for our company. And so as EPWP is thinking about skills, what are the behaviours for work that people in an EPWP project of any age are learning? We know the worst programs are the ones where people get paid but no work happens because we didn't order the materials, or the supervisor didn't pitch up, or maybe actually only the workers thought there was a project happening. You understand? So what are we teaching? Run a project that teaches if you're not on time, you're fired. How do you deal with authority? How do you ask with questions? Behaviours for work, are we teaching that in every single one of our projects? The other big gap that is getting wider and wider, particularly with the older population and populations that are in areas with poor connectivity, and it's digital literacy as a basic life skill. So people are good at working on their phones. Too many people have not ever used a computer, are not familiar with the basic packages that pretty much every formal sector job will ask for. Microsoft, Google, how do I do stock control, etc. So that's a really important thing for us to be dealing with. The other thing I just wanted to raise as EPWP is thinking through how do we work with the skills system more effectively. We are approached by training providers as Harambee every day. So a training provider has got funding, they have trained somebody in something, but they need a workplace experience to get their qualification. And that's where it's going wrong. It's a right principle, theory and practice, but what's happened is you've got a skills system that's doing the classroom training and then we don't know where the work experiences are. And the formal sector, as we see, can't absorb the number of people. I was talking to somebody in Free State Agriculture the other day. He said, I've got 2,500 young people from the TVETs who need agricultural practical placements to qualify. How is EPWP also saying, well, are we aware of who's already got the theoretical training in this community? And is there a way we can bring them in to give them some of the work experience? So there's a lot of working with systems and matching things that's important. The final thing I want to say is that for many people, that EPWP job will be the only formal contract they have in the year. And so we heard, before lunch, the critical issues about enterprise and what are the skills that we need to be able to say, how does that 12 weeks or 20 weeks of work give me some income? Do I know how to use that to make more income? And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Now, I couldn't sit here and talk to you. I'm so sorry this is such a half-screen effort. Without talking to you about the SA Youth platform. Can I just check, who knows about SA Youth? Okay, too depressed to breathe. SA Youth, okay, this is the platform that's come out of the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention. DPW is one of the MOU participants in government. It works very closely with Department of Employment and Labour and ESSA, and what we're ultimately working on is seamless APIs across different systems. The intent is, how do we break, as the minister was speaking earlier, the patronage and the corruption and the paying for job systems that sit across our economy, not just in EPWP. So I talk to people about, how are jobs at your local supermarket advertised? Well, you pay somebody to take your CV. And then you pay the person who's taken your CV if you want to get on the list. And then if you get on the list and you get an interview and you get the job, you will split your salary with the person who gave you the job for the next 6 months. I've heard it from the mines, I've heard it in retail, it's just how it works. And so part of what we're trying to do with this is we're trying to say, how do you make jobs visible to any young person? And they don't have to have a network. They don't have to pay for it. They don't have to have data. They don't have to sleep with somebody to get access to where the job is. They don't need to have an uncle who knows somebody who can get them in. So, and I was just sitting earlier and I thought, let me have a look on SA Youth and do a search for EPWP. There was one job that popped up. So the jobs that EPWP is creating are not visible to young people in that transparent thing. And it's not about saying we only use that platform to recruit. Obviously, you can still do your recruitment processes. But let's start using some of the tools that are there to address the problems we have identified and see if it works. If you put an opportunity up on SA Youth, you can ask all these questions I was talking about. So this is a program in agriculture. This is an EPWP project where we're going to do something to do with, I don't know, cattle inoculation, or that's what a lot of the youth service projects have been doing. Can I find people who've have done a learnership in primary agriculture? So it gives you an ability to find a much, much, much broader network of people than you will just through the current networks. The second thing that's really useful is if we can get young people telling us, and they tell us, that they've been in EPWP opportunities, and we can do some matching with the EPWP beneficiary database, we should be able to start to see some of the transitions of how people in EPWP projects are moving. And then how do we see which ones are working well, and what are the interventions that are working, and how do we move it on? Okay, I'm going to be in trouble in a minute, so I'll skip. I mean, one of the things that I was asked to reflect on, and I think you know this better than me, but EPWP is 20 years old. Some of the programs in this room are 30 years old. There are lessons that we have learned. There are hundreds of evaluations that have been done. We need to accumulate what we've learned. And I want to talk about a few things. Working for Water, I think their first evaluation that I read was 1998. And it's remarkable what 30 years of a program, and we saw it in the earlier video, when you have a whole value chain. Yes, we're removing alien vegetation, but we're creating furniture, we're building small business. There's a whole set of activities happening. And it's incredibly frustrating for them that they consistently saying, if you gave us more money, we could do more. But we never quite know. So there's some critical issues in terms of secure budget, and I should say this first. Pretty much every evaluation from the first review of EPWP, not to mention the program evaluations, programs work, ad hoc doesn't. EPWP works when there's a program, when there's a budget allocation to do some of the stuff with workers we're talking about. National Youth Service, the first National Youth Service program I was involved in was 1993. Right? There's so much learning that we forget. And Year Beyond is one of the current projects in the Western Cape government that is doing incredible stuff in terms of supporting schools, but doing all kinds of stuff with out-of-school youth. And it's growing and growing, and they've got amazing digital tools to be able to support scale. So you no longer need to have quite so many staff employed to engage large numbers of young people. The Community Work Program, which has been going through its own issues, but somewhere around 2011, 2012, they had what they called the Yukskai project, and they said, if we had people in communities along the Yukskai, from Bertram's and Ellis Park, where it comes out of the ground, all the way through to the Hartbeespoort Dam, and we picked up rubbish, and we educated communities and we tested water quality. Could we change the quality of the water in the Hartbeespoort Dam? And they did. And that was a CWP intervention. Okay, so I'll go faster. But Zimbabwe is a remarkable story of how you can work differently from the way we imagine contracting individuals to contracting households. There's incredible power in some of this. So this is the last thing I want to show, and this is the enterprise ladder. And we heard from our colleagues earlier, and particularly SIFA and CEDA. We have been doing a lot of work to try and understand what do we have to do to change the mindset to think about, I'm confident enough to start an income generating activity. And what we've done is a lot of mapping to say, yes, there are a lot of enterprise development support services, but what they require is miles away from where many, many young people are who are not sure how to start. And so we did a really interesting thing, testing with the Social Employment Fund. We took WhatsApp, because WhatsApp is a tool everybody knows how to use. We took digital content where young people who have succeeded in telling stories about how they've started a business. That content was made available at a reverse billing website. What that means is, if a person looks at that, we pay, they don't pay. But it's embedded in WhatsApp, and it's embedded with a coaching methodology. So how do I set a goal every day? Taking everything we've learned about what it means to be work ready. And then we said digital content is good, but pretty much 6 to 7% of people would use it. How do we get that up? So if someone's in a social employment fund program, could the team leaders be saying to those workers, so have you had a look at it? Have you thought about earning? Have you started? What are you finding hard? And what we were able to do, there were 10 organisations when it initially started, was build a dashboard, which was a live dashboard, so every team leader could see what's happening with my participants in using this content. It's not costing anybody anything. You understand? That is there, and yet the take-up is low. So can the team leader be a bit of a coach outside of the WhatsApp, talking to a young person? Can the team leader also say, because they're also only contracted for as long as the project lasts, can they also start to learn and earn some more money? And so now we've expanded that to working with community-based organisations that work with volunteers. The National Youth Service have just looked at it. We'll test it with DBE. And I think that what we're saying to some of the big EPWP programs is we need to think about how do we make that available, and then how do we have an evidence basis to say to CEDA and SIFA, this is the kind of offering that we think may be necessary to support these people who are doing well to go further. So in conclusion, because of course it's been a bit long, there isn't a single silver bullet to solve people moving from public employment into jobs. That's solving the South African economy. But we have an incredibly rich tapestry of stakeholders, a huge amount of experience, and we're not doing nearly well enough collectively to say, well, if that tool has been developed by NYDA, or if DHET's doing that, that we're not using the things together to say, can we change our performance against this problem? And that would be my clarion call to all of us, is let's start to not think at a project level, but start to think about how we are looking at bringing more and more partners collectively together and say, what is it we're going to try and get done and solve this year? Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. That's my chair. Yours is that side. Yeah, I'm not yet that famous. No, you go to the VIP seat. Mine is low economy class. All right, so we're going to hold on to our questions. Please hold on, and we go straight to the next presentation. Again, I'll plead to save me time. If you can stop at the top of the hour, that would be amazing. We'll get everyone to stand up and give you a standing ovation. Do we promise? All right, let's see. 17 minutes.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This was supposed to be the scene-setting presentation, but no. The scene-setting has gone. So anyway, this was going down memory lane. Can anybody tell me where do we get these particular figures from, tables? That person can go home early. Okay, this was from the NDP. It's always good when people put it down and try to anticipate where do we want to go into the future. So I thought I'm going to refresh your mind so that we can all understand what figure 3.1 and 3.2 of the NDP said. We were all aiming for something. I'm going to. Please look on this particular slide and then look on this slide. And then you ask yourself, what is common? There's at least 3 areas in each of these scenarios that are common. Can anybody see it? We were aiming for 23 million work opportunities. Have you ever heard somebody tell you that before? We're all talking about what the problem is. We've got unemployment that is high, but nobody tells you what we are aiming for. So we were aiming for 23 million work opportunities, and we're still aiming for it by 2030. So that's something we need to keep in mind. We recognize that we had a high growth path, and it was then for 5.4% economic growth, which means it needed to be about 11 million new jobs. So the question was, if that happened, what was the requirement for EPWP? It was that we needed to be about 1 million work opportunities. And so this is where Penny and I almost intersect, because the question we should be asking, if we believe that when the economy grows, that it will be the continued growth that we've seen before, which would be the services sector, it will be the financial sector, it will be retail, it will be transport, business services. The question is, how are we positioned as EPWP to help along that particular transition? Okay. Then there would be agriculture and mining would have moderate growth, and there would be an expectation that construction grows with infrastructure development. And I think that's something very important for us collectively to remember as the EPWP. So with the moderate growth, it was 4.8 per year, 10.6 million jobs, and there would be more of a reliance on EPWP, which is 2.6 million work opportunities. And here we would see manufacturing and high-paid services expand, and then also construction continues to be important. Then when you look forth, you then go ahead and you had the last scenario, which was that we could then get 5.5 million EPWP jobs. So in other words, the economy would have been weak. Now, what does this then mean? Where is the reality? In terms of total employment, we had 17 million. 0.6 per year growth, that was last year, 2024, and then the employment increased by 132,000, reaching 17.1. So here, the reliance on the EPWP is high, because obviously the economy couldn't absorb all of these participants. Private sector growth was weak. Public sector and informal work absorbed some employment, but not enough. Construction is weak and slow in terms of spending. So the question is, where were we? And where were we in 2010? So if you compare the two, how much have we increased? So we've increased about 4 million. If we look at the growth before, in 2010, where were we? And if we look at where the EPWP was in terms of its contribution. So when we look at this part, we recognize that the vision was to reduce unemployment to 6% and to have at least 5% annual growth. But we recognize that it's been limited in terms of growth and high unemployment, and therefore it simply means we need more of the EPWP. And so At the same time, if the economic growth is not there, the challenge would be that you wouldn't have the fiscus. And if you don't have the fiscus, it affects your ability to expand the EPWP. And so therefore it calls and asks of us to look for more efficiency in terms of identifying resources and looking at the various funding mechanisms. And also to be able to ensure that there's an urgency to be able to have better targeted interventions and certain reforms. So the reality is that we are definitely going to have to look at better targeting of resources, and we're also going to have to look at certain elements such as improved impact assessments. I want to go forth, and I want to give you some of the realities. Very often we don't unpack EPWP far enough. And so the question we have to ask ourselves is, what does this mean in terms of the OECD, in terms of how one goes to evaluate various programs? They look at issues of relevance, effectiveness, efficiency, impact, and sustainability. Now the green is the green, but that orangey color is actually supposed to be the red. Now the question we should ask ourselves is, how often are we open to evaluate the programs? Are we too close to the programs? Are we recognizing that the program needs more? And if the program needs more, we therefore need to be more hard on ourselves and evaluate the impact of the resource allocation. So we then go through and we need to start to unpack. We need to ask the question of relevance. Now let's have a look. Of these 22 programs, are all of the ones in the second column, are they green? So you can see most of them are green. Can you see that? So in other words, what we are saying is that when we are looking at our various interventions, they very often tie in to something that is important. When we then look at the coastal management, we then see that the relevance is high because it supports climate adaptation, coastal erosion prevention, and ecosystem protection. However, when you look at the effectiveness, it's often successful in providing short-term employment but lacks structured career pathways. Efficiency, it is moderate because funding constraints and environmental factors such as storms, sea level is rising can affect the operations. Its impact, it is high because it enables biodiversity, tourism, and coastal resilience. Sustainability, it's moderate. Why? Because it's dependent on continued government funding and community participation. And if you then look at the size and the scale, it's about 2,861 work opportunities. So the question I'm asking is, do we sit enough to be able to evaluate the various EPWP programs? Because it's exactly Penny's point that she was making with the Working for Water. If we are finding that programs are ticking those particular boxes, we need to ask, are they at the right level? Can they expand? And so because we don't undertake that type of analysis, we cannot truly answer whether the resource allocation in itself is at its most optimal. And I think that is going to definitely be required over the next period within a resource-constrained environment. If you then look at enterprise development, we've been doing enterprise development. We've had a successful partnership with the ILO. But the reality of it is that the enterprise development definitely needs to be able to be scaled up. There's a lot of constraints that we continue to face, and we've already looked at the reality that, and done some sums, that we would need about 50 million. But the question would to be able to support at least 500 entrepreneurs and create at least 100 permanent jobs per annum. Now the question is, what could we do with that money in EPWP? We could do so much more in terms of EPWP on those other various programs, which therefore emphasizes the importance of us continuing to engage the developmental agencies, which is CEDA and the CIFA that now have combined into CEDFA. And so the reality of it is we can see that they've been able to undertake certain reach, and they've been able to reach quite a number of SMMEs. So if you look at the finance part in the last bullet point, they've reached about 80,000 SMMEs in terms of financing and created close to 100,000 jobs. So the reality of it is that there needs to be continued engagements with CIDFA to be able to make sure that there is a closer alignment, because the EPWP on its own would have to ask, is that 50 million better spent to be able to enhance some of the interventions? If we look at training very similarly, we've done quite a bit in terms of training. We've crowded in support, but the reality is one of the challenges that we are faced with is the fact that the partnerships with the TVETs continue to be a challenge. Enrollments at TVETs have declined, and so the question is, why has it been declining? We've been seeing underfunding in relation to the TVETs. We've been seeing some of the challenges that even Public Works can assist with, which is the infrastructure issues that TVETs continue to be able to be faced with. But the reality is, to be able to have a better impact, we need to be able to work together better. So the question is, if we're going to have a Working for Infrastructure program, how can we use that particular program to better the facilities of the community colleges and the TVETs? And therefore recognizing that it is much more of a collaborative function. So the reality is, we are seeing that as low-hanging fruit in relation to that. Now we needed to be able to ask ourselves, and connect it to the first slide. So the question is, if we're going to get to a point of having more EPWP, which would be at least about having an unemployment rate of about 25%, we'd be looking at about 4 million work opportunities that would have to be created per annum. And you can see the types of monies that would have to go into it, about 150 billion that would have to go into it. And so the reality of it is that we need to be able to ask ourselves over the next period the following, and I'm concluding. Gama, I hope I'm going to get that standing ovation. Great. So the next thing is, training and enterprise development. It is crucial. It is crucial because of the ability to gain skills, and then obviously expand the ability of the participant to be able to improve their livelihoods. But then when we look forth, we need to be able to see that EPWP is a social intervention that provides immediate relief to the vulnerable. We need to be able to ensure that there's an enhancement of the social protection role, and we need to also ensure that the community-based projects and the care initiatives increase to be able to improve the effectiveness of the EPWP. There needs to be improved governance and data-driven decision-making, and also partnerships could be critical over the next period. You're all very much aware that there is the work that was mentioned in the budget vote speech, and that would then require greater synergy. I was part of an interesting project about 2 years ago, in which we actually took all our interventions, whether it be SMME development, whether it be training, and we mapped all of it. Now, I think at the end of the day, what we really need to do is we really need to get to sit down as a country and ask the question, which scenario are we looking at? And all of us collectively need to be able to say, if it is the high scenario that we are going for, what is the scenario, what is the resources going into it? And then we need to be able to map out the various other initiatives. What's the scale of the TVETs? What's the scale of the EPWP? What's the scale of the SRD? I think a lot of people got injured and hurt when the NDP was discussed, but the reality of it is we need to get even more injured and even more hurt, because you can see the value of these types of work that was done. Because if you don't put out a collective target for the entire country, we can't come back 14 years later and then analyze and see how did we perform. And I think that's what this figure 3.1 and 3.2 allows for. The question we need to ask ourselves as EPWP when we look at this particular components, are we ready to be able to operate within the low growth scenario? Are we able to get to the 5.5 million work opportunities? And if we are able to get to the 5.5 million work opportunities, we need to ask ourselves, is it time to return back to the working 4 days? The days where we could put big headlines to the EPWP that says our objective is to ensure 7% more water resources within the economy. I think as a program, we need to not only talk about the numbers to answer what Minister said, but to go ahead and look and ask, where are we going to make the biggest contribution? So the teachers' assistants can talk about how they can contribute to education. The question is, all of these various 22 programs, what are the headlines that we are going to be able to say? Last point, it is no use having training and enterprise development separate. They have to be built into these particular programs, because if you continue to separate them, you're going to continue to have inefficiencies. These programs need to start from the beginning, targeting the right people, and ensuring that ultimately people then exit the EPWP so that more people can come into the program. Thank you. The time is 2:59, by the way.
Wow. I must say, usually when I'm facilitating, the only person who keeps to whatever time I give him is Mr. Ignatius Ario. You have competition now, Mr. Ario. The game is game on. So, colleagues, we did promise that we'll stand up and give you a standing ovation. We also need a stretch anyway. So let's stand up and give you a standing ovation and stretch at the same time. Yes. If anyone was sleeping, they are waking up now. Okay. We must keep our promises. Okay, no, you are not released yet. Yeah. We will just take 3 questions, one from this column, and one from this column, and one from that column. If there are no questions, then we'll take whatever we get. This column, is there anyone? Let's see which hand goes up first. Going once, going twice, virtually gone, almost gone. This column, is there anyone with a question in this column? Anyone with a question in this column? Virtually gone, almost gone, ultimately, almost, ultimately gone. Okay. Last column. Yes, there is a question there. Oh, no, as long as you keep your statement under 1 minute, you are fine. Okay, no, wait for the mic, because we have people online. So if you are not using a mic, the people online, we might have to give them their refund. So.
I've got a simple solution to your problem.
Okay, tell us who you are first.
Okay, Lawrence Barbier, Western Cape Government. My solution is send the youth to the army for 4 years. They will come out disciplined and with a 4-year degree. Thank you.
Okay, we send them to the army to just exercise or to actually fight someone?
You go and educate them there, and you also make sure that when they come out, they know how to make a bed and they know how to keep places clean.
Okay. All right, thanks for the simple solution. On that note, it was a statement, not a question. You are released. Thank you. I think the penny, the standing ovation was for you as well, so you are sharing it. All right, so we go to the last session, technical session. Mr. Chawalala, where are you? You are going to be moderating this. I understand they wanted the program directors to go for coffee at this point. And they cheated me. They made my ticket after this meeting so that I will make sure the meeting doesn't overrun time. Otherwise, I miss my own flight. Sneaky arrangement, but seems to be working. So, Mr. Chabalala, according to the program, we have contributors, which I assume means it's not presentations. No, your VIP seat is that side. That's the economy class. So, you have 4 people. One is online. Those who are managing the online things, can we confirm that Sybil is online and she can hear us? Sybil, please unmute your mic and give us proof of life, please.
Can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. All right. So Sybil has confirmed there's someone whose mic is open here. If your laptop, because we are going to an online session, please do us a favor if you are in the room. Mute your laptop if you are in the meeting, and also put the volume to 0. Would really appreciate that. Otherwise, we get feedback and then people can't hear properly. All right, so the 4 people that Mr. Chabalala will be facilitating the session for, let's see if we can find them. I understand 2 of them were not officially introduced in the morning. So maybe once they come up here, I could quickly do that. We do have Sybil already online, and then we have Dr. Molefe Pule in the house. Yes, please. Thank you. We have Sybil already shown proof of life online. We have Ms. Tozama Mdala in the house. Is Tozama in the house? Oh, you're being mic'd. Okay. Okay. She is being mic'd. And then we've got Mr. Tumelo Dichabe. Is Tumelo? Oh, he's being mic'd as well. So my assumption is that contributions are not as long as presentations. Is that correct, Mr. Chabalala? That there are no presentations, right? Please, can we have some roving mics for Mr. Chabalala? I might think, he might say I might have sabotaged him because he might do a better job than me, okay? All right, so what we'll do, how many people do you have, Mr. Chabalala?
We have 4 people.
All right, so if I do my maths right, if on average you give each person total talking time of 5 minutes, that takes us to 20 minutes. And then you hand over back to me. I use the remaining time to maybe field a few questions. So it's 5 past now. I will come back at 25 past. Over to you.
Thank you, Gama. I think we can clap hands for the MCs. Okay, thank you, colleagues. Thanks for the opportunity to discuss with this esteemed panel. As I was preparing for this session, I saw a few things which might stimulate ideas. You'll remember, colleagues, what we now know as the Arab Spring started in December 2010 up to December 2012. One of the reasons for the Arab Spring was that youth unemployment in the Arab world was 23.4%, and for women, young women, it was even worse. It was 31.5% unemployment. And I was reading the quarterly labor force survey yesterday for the 4th quarter for 2024 South Africa. Our national unemployment is 31.9%. And for youths above 25, below 35, the unemployment is 39.4%. And then for younger youths who are in the job market who are under 24, it's even 59.6%. So we can't deny that we are sitting on a time bomb. And we can look at these youths as a problem or look at these youths as a resource that we need to keep. And I hope my colleagues here in the panel will start unpacking that as we go ahead. Maybe since we have Sibo on the line, with networks, and she's clearly audible, we can start with her, give her 5 minutes of fame, and then she can help us discuss. I think Sibu's is talking about case studies and success stories of partnership-driven initiatives. Thank you. Over to you, Sibu.
Thank you so much, Chair, and again, good afternoon. This is a very, very, I appreciate, obviously, the opportunity. I've been fortunate to work in the program, so I'm well versed with, the objectives, etc. And I think that also assisted me very, in order for me to assist within the renewable energy space. But obviously, the opportunities cuts across all the sectors. So although I've got this presentation, I'm mindful of the time. And so what I'll go very brief, very quickly to what the presentation would cover. But I think just to remind colleagues, we all know, and as the previous speakers have also spoken, When you deal with partnership-driven initiatives, you can leverage your resources, your skills, and your expertise. So what I've looked at was, for example, in Brazil. Sorry, colleagues, can you see my presentation? I don't really want to follow the presentation because we're going to run out of time.
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. All right. So you've got these presentations within your pack. So let me go to the important slides that we want to get to. All right. So we're looking at Brazil. One of the examples there is the community health system that they use. And that was basically implemented since 1994. And it's a collaboration between the local government and the NGO. But it has made such significant impact over the last couple of years, and it's still continuing strong. And although I've got renewable energy ventures in Brazil, but let me tell you, having worked within the renewable energy space, I want to share with you opportunities for this public employment program. So just as a quick, just to share with you a quick model that they are using within Brazil, is just how they were able to align the community health workers with your universal service providers there, with the health system, your general practitioners, and everybody that plays their role there has basically then contributed to the success of, to the overall success and improvement of the health sector within Brazil. I'm going to go back quickly. And then if you just look, because we want to see what is the impact. We found, for example, that there was a 25% reduction in the infant mortality rate. They also had to look at the education in terms of the health services. And there you can see that there was an increase in the educational enrollment rate, where people wanted to become more aware. Local employment rate is also increased because people are now more healthier, etc., etc. And there's just a reference to the report. So we all know, I mean, I'm not going to preach to the converted, but the key challenges that we always find, whether it doesn't matter where we go when it comes to public employment programs, is the bureaucratic hurdles, all right? I've also experienced it currently when we did our social impact assessments, for example, in Limpopo, in Northern Cape, and in Eastern Cape. You always find those processes, that kind of prevent the private sector from quickly accessing the necessary people within the public sector. Funding limitations, the limited funding. However, through the partnerships, especially when you have the private sector as part of it, there is really a contribution, meaningful and significant contribution that can come from those partners. But what we need is we need to look at that need for alignment amongst all stakeholders to overcome the challenges such as how do we recruit? We hear the same questions over and over. How do we recruit? The alignment when we look at the scoping of projects, how do we ensure that it is targeted, as the previous speaker said? How do we ensure that our young people are at the forefront? Because when you get to the rural areas, in terms of the cultural and the social dynamics, the young people are being put at the back foot in some of our areas, and then differing objectives where we have conflicting objectives amongst the partners that can lead to a misunderstanding, etc. I'm going to skip some of the slides because I feel that we need to get to the crux quickly. And then what we're looking at is how does this integrating sustainability in partnerships. We find that it's really, the impact is high at the community when communities are involved. It also has obviously an impact on the environment. Long-term resource management is very high because we are pulling all our resources to obviously maximize our output and impact. the local need considerations. Let me just say, when we work, I'm one of the consultants that also does the socioeconomic development projects and programs for in the renewable energy space. We make sure that we look at the local needs and the vulnerability there. And then also we obviously look at the volatility in terms of these projects. I quickly want to speak to South Africa, but I'm not going to go into each and every slide. Colleagues can go and just go and read the stats in terms of our plans for our country. I want to get to just a very important slide that we have here. Sorry, it's just a link to a Word document so that I can show colleagues when we are engaging, and this is where the program really needs to tap into. What we do when we speak, because we are fortunate, I hope you can see this. What we do when we engage, when we are contracted in the private sector. Oops, sorry. I don't know this full screen. Okay. When we engage, we basically remind them that we are looking at self-reliant rural communities. For example, we are scoping with planned solar panels will be constructed, or wind farms. And we are saying that we need to have a concept. I will obviously share this additional documents with the team where we leave no one behind. We look at sustainable livelihoods. We look at sustainable entrepreneurial businesses, social cohesion, and then the strategic partnerships. For example, when we know that there's going to be a solar panel, we unpack those every aspect of the value chain, and we can then go and identify to say these are jobs that, when we skill our people, they can potentially access these jobs, whether it's in the development phase, manufacturing space, construction space, etc. And I must also say, colleagues, in Limpopo, and maybe in other provinces as well, there are young people who has been sent to China to go and learn how to manufacture the solar panels, all right? And so those are the kind of entrepreneurs that when they come back into the country, we need to be ready to support and help them to set up those businesses, because they become, the people that will employ. We've got a lot of trained young people who can install and who can maintain. So we need to look as a collective to see where is it.
Sibu,
sorry?
just one more minute to wrap up.
Okay, cool.
I know you know my association with Limpopo, so every time you say Limpopo, I get softer, but please wrap up.
No problem. And then also within that space, we're very clear as to where our impact should be, all right? I just wanted to touch on, I think her name was Penny. Penny, what we do also when we engage with the private sector is to say, like you've said, when the young people get employed, they will get the on-the-job training there. But it's this foundational package training that we need, is that they need to know their rights. They need to have the foundational literacy programs. And these are where the partnerships then also come in. So I just wanted to say that part, the partnerships, everybody bring their own resources, their skills, their finance, but we need to make sure everybody is around the table so that we can come up with the best practice that will work wherever we take it within the country. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sibu. A round of applause. Yes, the just transition in energy, I think you summed it up very well, and the opportunities therein. I'll ask now Dr. Molefe to come and talk to us about the contributions of government, private sector, international partners in advancing entrepreneurship and skills development. I think you have 5 minutes, or you need about 2 days, but we'll just squeeze it into 5 minutes.
5 minutes should do.
Yeah.
Maybe even 3. So thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. So I'm going to be a bit unpopular, Chair. I'm going to need your protection because I might go off the beaten track a little bit here. So I'll ignore the presentation. We had a presentation, but I'll ignore it for now. So the request I got was to make a contribution in terms of the contributions that, as the chair was saying, private sector, public sector, and international donors are doing in terms of creating entrepreneurship and skills development. Now, one of the things I think, Chair, that is abundantly clear, particularly to a room such as this one, is that we know the facts. I mean, you even said the facts before when you talked about the Arab Spring. We are well and truly conscious of the fact that we've got a problem on our hands. Youth unemployment is a great concern. We also know the numbers. I mean, CJ was here talking, the DDG was talking about the billions that need to go into these programs. We can find these numbers everywhere. I don't want to go there, Chair. I think it's grounds that we have gone through, we know. And I think one of the challenges that we've got when we talk about this topic is that we tend to function within a box. And my view, Chair, is that sometimes we need to step out of the box to be able to look at a topic from a fresh perspective. Now, I think one of the experiences, I've been in government for some time, now I'm in the private sector, is that we tend to talk about people, but we don't talk with the people. So it's interesting that we're talking about young people sometimes and they are not here to give us their perspective of what is going on. And I think for me, that is part of us thinking out of the box and saying, let's get out of the box. Let's look at it from a fresh perspective. So one of the things I did today, I came along with a young lady. Tabangile, stand up, my sister. There she is. That's Tabangile Benga. She is an intern at Naspers. She is from Mamelodi. How old are you, Taba? She is 27 years old. What she does is that she's a coder. That's what she does. She's a coder. She's currently studying at the Tshwane University of Technology. She's currently building a rover. This rover will be applied and used in agricultural settings. So this morning, me and her, she's an intern in my team, we were having our weekly one-on-one session. I have a weekly one-on-one session. I've got 3 interns in my team at the moment. And she said to me, yesterday I had a talk at another event, Chair, and she said to me, she's afraid of speaking in public. And she said to me, how do you speak in public? So I said to Taba, I happen to be speaking in public this very afternoon. So you are coming with me. Because we are going to go, and when we get an opportunity, you are going to speak in public. All right? So that you get an opportunity to experience that, because part of her thing was she feels afraid. Right? And I said to her, Tabangile, everybody feels afraid. I feel afraid. Everybody feels afraid. It's part of the process of growing. Now, Chair, the point I'm trying to make is this. Number one, I think we make the error of trying to solve for a problem without talking to the people who have the problem. That's the first problem. So when I was thinking about my time, I didn't know this would be the format, but my plan, Chair, was to actually call Tabangile up on stage to speak. Because she needs to share what it feels like to be a young person trying to get into the job market. Right? I'm sure she'll come up. I'm sure she'll come up. So
Nothing for us without us.
nothing for us without us. Come, my sister, come. So my hope had been, Chair, tell us when we use your 5 minutes, please. My hope had been that she's from Mamelodi. She's got 3 colleagues in the team. And the other one, Yolanda, is busy doing a course on Python this afternoon. She said she didn't have time to come here because she's studying for a course in Python. Renelo is working from home this afternoon. So I took Tabangile because I wanted her to come. And I wanted her to tell you about her journey, who she is, what she does for me, and the challenges that she experiences in terms of the issues that you are talking about. We have 5 minutes, Cecilia, so don't talk for long. You have a minute.
Okay.
All right, let's go.
Okay. Afternoon, everyone. I hope, don't mind me if I'm shaking or anything. It's actually the first time having to talk in front of a really large audience. So my name is Kabangile Benga. I'm actually from Mamelodi, which is in Pretoria. I'm 27 years of age. I studied computer systems engineering from the Tshwane University of Technology. I'm currently doing my advanced diploma there. Still the same, still in computer systems engineering. I actually graduated in 2023. And then after graduating, I actually found myself unemployed as a part of the large unemployment. And then I actually went into a learnership program, which is funded by NASPRES through an implementing partner called Africa Tican Services. So most of the time, like, I would say, usually most of these companies would actually spend millions and millions of rand into actually providing us with digital skills. But then sometimes I even ask myself, are you aware of some of these programs that are actually being funded? Because sometimes you might find yourself funding for some of those programs in a way that are actually not being funded for the, what can I, I'm mumbling. Because most of the, I was actually telling Malifer, sometimes maybe you might find yourself, like, what is the aim for these programs? Which is to actually decrease the large unemployment rate within South Africa. And then some of these programs that are being offered, for instance, I did Microsoft Cloud Security engineering through a company called Africa Tican Services. And then before that, I was actually depressed for the first couple of months. I was actually unemployed for about 6 months prior to the learnership program. But then I asked myself, if I am to be depressed for only 6 months, what happens to the person who has been unemployed for the last 5-6 years? Yeah. So I would say some of these programs are actually helping, eh? Lucky for me, they have impacted me both socially as well as economically. Socially, I would say they have allowed me to actually be here, to connect with like-minded individuals and professionals within the field. And then economically, they have actually equipped me with valuable, I would say, valuable skills within the tech industry.
Nice. Well done.
Thank you.
Come, sit here. So for me, Chair, if I may, so for me the point about what contributions are we making is that I think the big picture is clear. We know what the problem is. My challenge to you, and that's why I say I'm going to be controversial, Chair, is I think we don't get detailed enough, right? In terms of what does it actually take to take a young person from Mamelodi who's doing skills and actually build their confidence. How do you actually make that individual such that when they go to an interview, she was telling me about a job interview she did a couple of times ago, and she's afraid to apply because she's afraid. It's not that she doesn't know. She's afraid. It's a confidence issue. How do we build that confidence? How do we take her, put her in a real life working situation in front of real people to actually see that you can actually talk in front of people? You're not going to collapse. No, they're not going to laugh at you. So for me, the point that I'm trying to make, Chair, finally, is the devil lies in the detail. I think the big picture is quite clear, but I often ask myself, if we're trying to solve for the issue of getting our youth adequately equipped, what are we doing on a day-to-day basis to actually give them the skills? We talk about workplace skill. What is a workplace skill? For instance, when you say somebody has got workplace skills and somebody's work ready to come into the work environment, what are you talking about? The ability to be able to speak in front of people, the ability to be able to articulate what they do and how well they do it. So I don't have my presentation. I think I should say this.
Yeah.
No, that's the presentation.
Okay, all
Yes.
right. Okay. Thank you, Doc. Yeah.
Okay.
When a PhD stands up, you can't chase them off the stage. It's a bit difficult.
Oh, you've given us information.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll sit there.
Kabangile, you know, there's a comedy called Seinfeld. I don't know if anyone who has watched Seinfeld on Netflix. Seinfeld said most Americans are afraid of death more than they're afraid of public speaking more than they're afraid of death. When they're given a chance to public speak, they rather die than than public speak. So it's a natural phenomenon. It's like COVID. It's like hypertension. All of us are afraid of this. But once you do it more times, you become less afraid. So don't worry about it. Thank you. I'll take this opportunity to ask now our other panelists. I'll start with Tozama. You're going to talk about brainstorming ideas on enterprise development, the National Youth Service within the EPWP framework.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
You very much, Chair,
Yeah.
and greetings to the House. And my bias is to the practitioners that are working with young people. I am from the NYDA, so my line of work and interest is on the development of a young person. Right through the presentations throughout the day, the theme that we've been hearing is the need for enterprise development, because the market at the moment is not able to generate or create jobs for these young people. And these young people, once they are done with an NYS program or EPWP program, they are expecting an exit opportunity, or else they'll move on to another learnership or another internship. So our focus at the NYDA, and it's something that we would want to deposit to the House, is that yes, we agree and we concur with all the speakers that there is no, I'll use the mic, that we are not able to create the jobs. So we can't transition these young people to employment. Let's rather look at ways to make them self-employed. With the programs that we have at the NYDA, before going into that, the grant program that I will be presenting on to tell you which programs within the NYDA that these young people can take advantage of. Just to first clearly say that the NYS program, which is spearheaded by the NYDA, it has 3 pillars that we work with. One is service, 2 is training, and the other one is transition, which is exit opportunities. In the inception of the program itself, the primary beneficiaries of the program were the communities, through young people doing the service, instilling a sense of patriotism and ensuring that these people are part of the solutions of their own communities. And also, we believe that by them participating in activities in their communities, then they would find they are most likely not to participate in things that destroy infrastructure. We've seen in the service delivery protests that people are in the forefront of burning churches, destroying valuable infrastructure. It's young people. But if you instill a sense of service to that young person, I doubt that that young person would, if they have either built or maintained a crèche or a clinic, they will want to see that clinic burn down. So we're hoping that by them, it will work on their brain, on their mentality, for them to understand that they've got a bigger role to play in their communities. The secondary beneficiaries, it is then the young people through the training component and the also exit opportunities. As the NYDA, as I said earlier, that we do not have the necessary jobs to transition these young people, and therefore we then motivate those ones that have an interest in the entrepreneurship world to take advantage of the grant funding program. The grant funding program of the NYDA is for young entrepreneurs who have an interest in starting a business. We've got 4 thresholds within that particular program, which allows young people to move from threshold 1, threshold 2, threshold 3, threshold 4, and up until they exit or they can't benefit anymore. The grant, you do not pay back. it gives young people an opportunity to take calculated risk without fear of paying back the money. But we don't just give these young people these grants. We also train them. Sorry. Okay. We also train them in the business world to prepare them for the world, and post giving them the grant, we also avail to them things like the voucher and other non-financial programs of the NYTA, your market linkages and mentorship. This then enables this young person to be able to sustain this business, to grow this business, and be able to move on to areas, to entities such as SAFTA and IDC once they've grown their business. Ours is to give them an entrance into the business space and for them to spread their wings and find ways or things to do with the knowledge that they've gathered in the trainings that they've participated in. So I think it would be something that we should partner with Public Works, because for one, our programs, our training is not accredited, and your training is accredited. So there's somewhere that we can leverage from the training itself. And we partner with your institution, and once you've trained them and they've done community service, and then you send them through to us for us to be able to take them through our grant program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Most of us were worried about capital when we have a business idea. We rarely put enough time to refine the business idea. We worry, where will I get the money? And if you look at the case of Google or other people, getting the money if you've got a good idea is the least problematic of anything. So we need to really capacitate our youths to generate brilliant business ideas and also to make them bankable. And then thereafter, money will be the least of their problems. Dumelo, I can see your smile. You have even better ideas. Please, can you come through?
Yes, I do. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity. I think one thing that I can say that sums up our whole ecosystem is that we can't see the forest from the trees. We literally, the three blind men, one is holding the tail of an elephant, and they're saying an elephant is nothing but a rope. Somebody's holding the foot of an elephant, and they're saying that elephant is nothing but a tree stump. One is holding the tusk of an elephant, and they're saying an elephant is nothing more than a giant spear. And the reason why all these men are seeing it that way is because they are too close to the situation. We need a helicopter view. We need to zoom out. And zooming out is us being able to come together in forming partnerships where we are able to leverage our collective experience, our collective expertise. That cross-pollination of ideas will lead us to a better space in the space that we find ourselves in. I just thought today I share a scarf tin, so to speak, or a lunchbox for you to take. And this will be in the form of 4 points. And the first one is that in order for us to really be effective in the space that we find ourselves in, we need to design and target, design programs that are targeted. So this means that we need to have a market-driven approach. What does it mean? It means we need to align our skills development with high-demand industries. In terms of the NGO that I represent, TechnoServe, we are looking at industries like agriculture, enterprise development, as well as digital economy. It could be different for each and every province in the country, but we need something like that. We need to be asking where are the employers and what are the employers looking for, so that we can then be able to customize a solution that speaks to something that's going to be effective. The second one is the structure and delivery of our programs. I think when you have large-scale programs, especially national programs, often what you lack is customization for the different needs as well as the industry needs on the ground. So we find ourselves being able to come up with great ideas, but we're not agile enough, we're not lean, and we don't use a decentralized model. So in the form of EPWP, you would be looking at a program that says we want to create jobs in the country, but can we say for Northern Cape, this is the sectors we're going to focus on? Can we say that in KZN, this is what we're going to focus on, as opposed to having a blanket approach and hoping that we will hit, and whatever we hit, we'll then call it a target. So we need region-specific, we need province-specific interventions that are aligned with demand-driven interventions. And second last, we have implementation and training quality. I think some of our trainings as a sector are too broad, and they often lack the deep industry specific expertise that lead to learners that are able to become self-sufficient beyond our interventions. So we need a blended approach where we are able to come up with a mixture of both technical skills as well as soft skills. It's not important to just give a learner a job. We need to capacitate them to be able to keep the job. That's where those soft skills become very important. And we need to emphasize mentorship, whether it be that we are placing a learner in a job or we are giving them an opportunity to become an entrepreneur. We need to emphasize mentorship, coaching, access to finance, access to markets. That way we are able to ensure a smooth transition to entrepreneurship or formal employment. So either way, we need to be hand-holding these guys to a point where we are able to say we have capacitated them enough to be able to succeed. And finally, rigorous impact measurement tools, tracking of actual income growth, business success, and job placements. What we've done in the past as an organization is we did not just come in and bring in a technical type of training, but we focus on critical thinking, we focus on design thinking, entrepreneurship thinking. That way, these participants of our programs are able to become problem solvers. So when the job is not there, when the job ends, they're able to say, hey, now I can use this skill, this critical thinking skill, this design thinking skill, this innovative thinking skill to be able to create something out of my life. But now, when we give them opportunities, as opposed to giving them an opportunity or empowering them to create opportunities, we're literally spoiling them. So for me, it's very important that we look at how we design our programs. We look at how the structure as well as the rollout of our programs looks like. We need to be implementing target-driven high demand. We need to be looking at high demand industries, and we need to be able to measure impact and scalability. So what we have done as EPWP, 14 million odd jobs over a 20-year period, that's great. But the Achilles heel is that they are temporary jobs. But what can we learn from those and bring other industry experts to collaborate to take that to next year? Because it can't just be 20 years wasted. We can do something about it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Well said. I think it speaks to our business plan for phase 5. We were talking about exit pathways. The colleagues were talking about lessons from other countries, Brazil. Before we have done food for waste here in South Africa from Brazil. So there's a lot we can learn from in the South-South and Triangular Cooperation Framework. Bureaucratic hurdles that we need to overcome. And I like the idea of agility, that we need to be responsive to the challenges of the future. You know, some of our young people are in education now, but learning things which are fast becoming obsolete. So we need to have a situation whereby our education system is responsive, not to the now, but to the future as well, so that we can still remain relevant in the future. I think there is a saying that if you can't unlearn and relearn in the future, you'll be considered illiterate. So we need to be able to respond to the challenges that we face in the future, even if we're learning now. Thank you, Chair. I'll hand over to my compatriot and colleague, Gama. Thank you.
All right, let's give a round of applause to our panelists. Thank you so much. And to Chabalala, although he didn't keep time, let's give him a hand. All right, my target was 4 o'clock, would be out of here, I'll be going to the airport. But now I'm going to hand over to my oh, you are released, thank you very much. Unless if where are the photographers? They've gone away. I never saw anyone take a picture. Come on, guys, photograph. Okay, they are unofficial ones. They are not there either. Cameras have run out of battery. Okay, fine. Yeah, my battery is low as well. All right. All right, so I'm going to hand over to my co-program director, who is